Good evening. My name is Andrew Warner. I'm your host for this evening. Before Long Now had the name Long Now, we call ourselves the Clock and the Library Project. There's a 10,000-year clock and a 10,000-year library. When we started to think about what a 10,000-year library actually was, how we would transmit information 10,000 years into the future, we found ourselves thinking a lot about language, the most basic way that information is encoded and stored. But while also exploring language, we learned that language does more than just passively transmit information. The right word can open up an entirely new world, a whole new experience, a way of talking about that experience, and can maybe even change the way we act in the world. We're really excited tonight to be hosting the Bureau for Linguistical Reality. The Bureau is a socially engaged artwork by Alicia Escott and Heidi Quante. We've been wanting to host a Bureau for years, and it's truly inspiring to see this evening come together. Welcome the Bureau of Linguistical Reality.
Thank you.
The Bureau of Linguistical Reality was established in 2014.
We founded the Bureau because we were lacking words and a greater lexicon to describe emotions and experiences we and others are having as our world rapidly changes due to climate change and other anthropogenic events.
In 2014, we came together during an unusually warm winter. As sentient beings, we were enjoying this unseasonably warm, sunny weather.
But at the same time, via a highly scientific process, we noticed that something was not right with this unusually warm weather.
We tried to verbally communicate this dissonance between mind and body and found that we were at a loss for words.
Indeed, we found ourselves searching for the right words to describe this feeling, and in this very moment, the need to create new words, and ideally, a greater lexicon to communicate to one another about our rapidly changing environment. And so, the Bureau of Linguistical Reality was born.
Our first official word was psychic corpus dissonance. Psychic corpus dissonance, or PCD, is used to describe this unseasonably warm, sunny weather during times that have historically been winter. And the subsequent feeling of ecstatic and elated feelings in this warm, sunny weather, while having a nagging, worrisome concern that this beautiful weather we're enjoying might be deeply amiss.
Many Bureau participants have reported experiencing PCD when enjoying the unseasonably warm weather, creating their own synonyms, including Obenhagenweer, meaning literally eerie weather, created by Guido Sonnenberg as a new Dutch term for watching people enjoy weather you worry is a harbinger of the climate chaos.
And we have Lissonance by Steve Wilson and Anthony Shore. And finally, for this term, we have Shot in February by Gilbert Dead. As we are in our work, the Bureau of Linguistical Reality accepts an unlimited number of similar synonyms.
The Bureau's name is inspired by the linguistic relativity hypothesis, which holds that language affects the ways in which its speakers conceptualize their world. In short, words influence our thoughts, action, culture, and ultimately worldviews.
At the Bureau of Linguistical Reality, we reference this term, linguistic relativity, playfully, but believe sincerely that until we have the language to describe the changing world around us, we will not be able to fully grasp what is happening. To this end, the Bureau of Linguistical Reality is solemnly tasked with generating new words and inviting others to create new words that represent our rapidly changing environment.
The Bureau's official seal embodies our desire to communicate with all sentient beings. The starburst is inspired by the location of our solar system in the galaxy that Carl Sagan and his collaborators etched onto the golden record created for NASA. We added red lips to the starburst to represent that we are seeking to communicate with all sentient beings throughout the cosmos. Since humans have been able to speak, we have coined new words to name our ever-changing environment. For example, the Industrial Revolution inspired all kinds of new words to be created. In 1905, Dr. Henri-Antoine Devois coined a new word to describe the phenomenon of dirty air caused by factories burning large amounts of coal. It was a sort of fog.
But a very smoky fog.
With a very dense particulate matter. Once this new word, smog, was introduced into the popular lexicon, people were able to talk about a new phenomenon that they had previously not had the language to explain fully.
In more recent history, we have experience with the term nostalgia, a longing for the place of one's home.
But due to human activity, a place can now change so rapidly that in one's lifetime, one might experience this sort of nostalgia or homesickness for a homeland one has actually never left.
There is a form of homesickness where one is still at home, but the environment has been unrecognizably altered due to industrial mining, logging, and/or the impacts of climate crisis. This condition, called solastalgia, is often exacerbated by a sense of powerlessness by those impacted by it. Solastalgia is a neologism created by Glenn Albright in 2003 and is partially derived from nostalgia.
Another new word, Anthropocene, which has stimulated much conversation, was introduced by Paul Crutzen in 2000 as a proposed geologic term for an epoch that begins when human activities began to have a significant global impact on the Earth's ecosystems.
Basically, we are the asteroid.
But who are the we?
Ah, yes. We realized that the energy around this term, Anthropocene, and its very problematic problems, is indicative that we are living through a time full of experiences that we need to recognize, codify, and revise in language so that we can better communicate with one another about our rapidly changing world and our individual experiences of it.
Since our inception, the power of creating new words to name our new realities has become increasingly clear.
Tragically, the impacts of our changing climate are lock in step or even woefully behind this shift in language. For example, climate crisis.
Although it has been a crisis for centuries.
Similarly, in 2019, climate emergency was declared the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year. That same year, the runner-up for the word of the year was the term woke. Since the Bureau's inception, like climate change, the movement of words and their meaning has accelerated. This is due to faster and faster media cycle systems and especially social media. A word's meaning can now shift or change radically over a short period of time, and others can claim or reclaim its meaning with dizzying speed. We have witnessed this many times recently, including with the term woke.
The Bureau honors how language has been historically created. People will name things that are new to them and begin using this neologism immediately without seeking approval of a government or any other entity.
For example, the shift from climate change to climate justice. Recognizing that English is also the language of colonialism and that language diversity and ecological diversity are intimately connected. At the Bureau of Linguistical Reality, our focus is less on the words themselves and more on creating spaces to sit with this unnamed complexity.
At the Bureau of Linguistical Reality, we have been creating diverse new spaces as well as new words via a wide array of methods, including our field studies. Our field studies are very official. In them, we bring together a group of strangers from diverse disciplines, scientists, artists, psychologists, writers, linguists, mothers, fisher people, and others who share a common interest around a specific issue, to discuss the feelings and experiences they are having around this issue for which no words yet exist.
Working with the Bureau, together we coin new words to better express these feelings and emotions.
We collaborate with people from all cultures and linguistical backgrounds to collectively create neologisms in a multitude of languages.
Because the Bureau of Linguistical Reality is an artwork, we are not bound by the linguistic rules or norms, but seek rather to expand the ways that we conceive our world.
In addition to our salons, the Bureau has been traveling the world with our mobile field study office. Our mobile field study office consists of a very bureaucratic desk, which we place in public places. And we sit behind our desk and allow curiosity to bring people to us, allowing all who approach us to lead the conversation. Interactions range from answering questions about the significance of words to listening to feelings and emotions people are having as our world rapidly changes, as well as creating neologisms to better express these feelings and experiences. The Bureau has held numerous field studies and field intensives worldwide. For example, we brought our mobile office desk to Paris for the 21st United Nations Climate Change Conference to collaborate with people globally to coin new words for the climate changes they are experiencing firsthand locally. Findings from these field studies include
1. Bringing strangers together who share a common feeling or experience for which they wish there was a word together transforms people from feeling isolated and alone in their thinking to feeling part of a greater group experiencing the same phenomena.
2. Bringing experts from different disciplines together inspires cross-pollination of ideas that generate new thinking.
And 3. Creating new words shifts people from viewing themselves as observers of culture to viewing themselves as active culture changers. And now, here are a few of the neologisms the Bureau of Linguistical Reality has co-created in collaboration with the public. In field study number 9, we worked with Runa Majaki and talked about an experience she has often, which we could all relate to, shadow time. Shadow time is defined as a parallel time scale that follows one around throughout the day-to-day experience of regular time. Shadow time may manifest as a feeling of living in two distinctly different time scales simultaneously, or acute consciousness of the possibility that the near future may be drastically different than the present. One might experience shadow time while focused on goal-oriented conversations, tasks, and planning for life as we've known it: college, career, occupational ambitions, retirement, rent. During such moments, there's a creeping shadow sense that would make all said planning feel obsolete or inconsequential.
In field study 2, where we focused on the drought, participant Gabriel Harp coined the word quill. Quill can be defined as to cause wilting in plants by not providing proper horticultural care out of concern for water consumption, especially during a time of drought, and the feeling of regret and responsibility for the plants then wilting, as well as the accompanying compensatory feeling caused by watering said plants and experiencing further guilt for not practicing water conservation. Guilt is derived from the words guilt and will.
Guilt, or to feel guilty, is a form of a double bind, and those affected by it feel trapped in a situation where they feel damned if they do and damned if they do not. This form of a double bind can make us both individually and collectively as a society ill.
In Los Angeles, we work with Diana and Mario to encapsulate the experience in LA of seeing a brilliant red sunset blown up by human-created pollution and knowing you're not supposed to enjoy it, however you do anyway, because the colors are a brilliant orange-red fire intoxicating to the eyes. Chukoho Sol comes from the Mayan word for dirty, chuko, the Korean word for wow, hole, and the Spanish word for sun, sol, Chukoho Sol.
At our extinction field study, we worked with Mike Arcega about a feeling he was having and coined on-way apocalypse. Well, the media often depicts the apocalypse as a sudden and dramatic event. The on-way apocalypse, or slowpocalypse, offers the concept of a doomsday that occurs at an excruciatingly slow day-to-day timescale. The on-way apocalypse may occur in the geologic blink of an eye, but for those urban Homo sapiens experiencing it, it is painfully slow and excruciatingly tedious as a result of the terrifying but perceived slow pace of the on-way apocalypse. Those who live feel a compulsion to distract themselves with ever faster media, technology, economic systems, all of which further disconnect us from the natural cycles we need to survive.
We work with Linda Ruth Cutts, a mother of 3 whose children are now of childbearing age, to create the word nonna paura. Nonna paura derived from the Italian nonna for grandmother and paura, Italian for fear. Nonna paura is the strong longing for one's children to have children of their own in order to experience the joys of having grandchildren, mixed with the simultaneous fear, knowing the life of your grandchildren will inherit a world filled with untold suffering as climate change accelerates and drastically alters the Earth. The Bureau has discovered these maternal sensations are occurring globally. For example, the artist James Lee collaborated with the Bureau to create an entirely new Chinese character. Mu is a spiritual or even physical ache arising from an intuitive maternal instinct that can be experienced by males or females, specifically one that is triggered by sensing that the current or imminent destruction of sentient beings, both human and non-human. This newly invented Chinese character is composed of 2 elements of existing Chinese characters. The first refers to illness, and the second means mother in classical Chinese. This new character resembles an existing word, which refers to an illness caused by caring too deeply, a fitting point of departure to describe expanding feelings of maternal care in response to human suffering and unprecedented ecological destruction. Mu, along with Chukohol Seoul, are examples of the Bureau's efforts to advance global understanding by creating neologisms that are free from preconceived ideas of what is linguistically possible.
In Field Study number 10, we worked with Theo Gibbs to coin Gomanadad. Gomanadad is a reframing of humanity from a force that is and sees itself as extractive to one that is regenerative, participatory, and energizing. This can be thought of as a new concept or as a return to an older version of ourselves that existed before we intellectually separated humans from other species. A Goman elevates beyond viewing Earth as a thing to be extracted from, or even as a thing to be protected, recognizing that both views are innately objectifying. Gomans exist as part of the Earth and can contribute positively and cooperatively to it. Gomanadad is taken from Goman, a Proto-Indo-European word literally meaning earthling or of the earth, and humanidad, Spanish, meaning humanity.
Marsification was created in collaboration with Zara Zimbardo and Patrick Rainsborough. It's both a verb and a noun were created to describe the expansion of colonial fantasy beyond the atmosphere of the Earth. A quote, manifest destiny to the stars. Marsification is an extension of the phenomenon of colonizing, quote, new lands, often accompanied by narratives of starting life anew, a civilizational reset, an apparent freedom from the political and social problems colonizers believe they are, quote, leaving behind. The cultural, political, and economic processes through which techno-utopian fantasies divert our attention from the dominant global economic system, erosion of the life support systems of Earth.
Another word also co-created with Zara Zimbardo and Georgia Carbone is refuvescence, which can also be called the whirring, pronounced with an H not usually utilized in English, or wormdazzle. The refuvescence is the almost miraculous moment of transition where waste becomes compost. Infused with fresh oxygen, it turns from smelling rank to smelling sweet and full of life. This involves a sort of tuning, like where the frequency of matter itself changes. It's like the transition, like the rim of an edge of a glass. A recognition that within this moment, which seems like magic, is the communal, cooperative, alchemical work of millions of individuals, the communal work of bacteria, worms, fungi, and other organisms not typically associated with magic. An acknowledgement that death, rot, and decay are fodder for life, growth, and beauty. The Warrior is a collective moment of transformation when what seems mirrored, foul, and utterly messed up in a society turns, as if by magic, the communal work of millions, into a progressive and uniting force where rotting structures and ideologies are turned or composted into fertile ground for new growth. Work dazzlers are the agents of transformation within a rotting culture. those who do the vital work of decomposing what needs to transform so that habitable futures may be possible. Wormdazzle is also the first Bureau word which we have identified with its own emoji.
Quia seed, co-created with artist Ash Outer from Detroit, Michigan, is a seed that, due to social trauma, stays consciously dormant, not out of oppression, but rather due to a deep, ancient interior strength, an instinct which senses not to seed until it finds itself in a fertile and fecund environment. Quia seed illuminates that the Bureau does not segregate or silo social experiences from environmental ones, but rather honors that how these and everything on our planet are interdependent. The Bureau travels everywhere, including to visit farmers on farms, where we created new words to express what they are experiencing. For example, in 2017, we collaborated with California farmers to create many new neologisms, including shalakwa. Shalakwa is the act in which Homo sapiens cover a once permeable surface until it is no longer permeable. For example, the earth in Central Valley, California, which once allowed for rainwater to flow down into California's groundwater reservoirs, has been shalakwa'd. Shalakwaing something to the point of impermeability leads to a barrier of restoration, rejuvenation, and ultimately revitalization. Shalakwaing can be done to the earth by Homo sapiens, who thereby prevent water from flowing to restorative underground reservoirs, or an individual can shalakwa themselves by becoming impermeable to restorative ideas and thinking.
In 2020, alongside fellow artists Kim Ano and Modesto Corrivias, we embarked on a multi-year collaboration with the public in Pacifica, where we worked with them to further discussions on the fraught topic of managed retreat, a very poorly termed neologism not of our making, which is frequently used by policymakers and planners to reference our need to reconsider our love of coastal front property amid what we here at the Bureau like to call the convergencies of increasing storms frequency, stronger storms, sea level rise, and sinking land due to groundwater depletion. Mintera is one of the terms we coined from that community. Mintera is from the Spanish to lie and tierra, land. It's a false sense of solid ground beneath us, a feeling of firm pavement when in fact the substrata beneath is liquid, a feeling of standing on pavement that feels sturdy, but the sea or other natural force has eroded the ground underneath it. This potentially or eventually results in a sinkhole or collapse. Mintera references human-constructed land on aqueous parts of the earth specifically, but can also be used as a general metaphor to talk about contemporary systems that seem solid and robust, but actually don't have any solid ground to stand on and can collapse more quickly than we might imagine.
Though bringing the community together for these conversations was difficult at times, many of the words we created were full of possibility and community.
Including emergination. Emergination is seeing climate change as something that is occurring and has occurred, and which requires immediate change, but re-envisioning that change not as a negative, but as an opportunity. Emergination is to have imagination, to realize that the changes we need to make may actually make our lives richer and more in alignment with our true nature.
Although the Bureau has coined a vast number of neologisms over the last 10 years, we alas can only share so many tonight. So we will leave you with a recently co-created word with Long Now member Richard Fisher of the BBC, Professor Moynihan, and Xander. It is serotonin. Serotonin is the calm astonishment at all the multitudinous, multi-species occurrences, chances, couplings which led to our very existence, stretching back to the very beginning of life or even time. Sublime mindfulness that none of these sedimented happenstances necessarily needed to have happened, and that without them, neither you nor anything you recognize would exist today. Flowing from this, a keen and urgent awareness that choices made now can have outsized impact on the spectrum of possibility concerning which futures can manifest next. of the shadow our current choices cast on all that comes hereafter, whether by maintaining choice or diminishing it, accumulating diversity or narrowing it.
Serenteletonic is a serene awareness of both the long arc that brought us here and the more urgent awareness of the outsized impacts this moment and the choices made in this moment can have for the future. It can act as a tonic to perpetuate empathy with future generations. The future is still plural, and we owe it to both our multi-species ancestors and our descendants to keep it that way.
The Bureau's work is not done. We still have reports of many emotions, experiences, and phenomenon for which no words yet exist. For example, in many cultures, humans are not viewed as separate from nature, and this is reflected in their lexicon. However, there is a massive need in the English language for a new word, a new definition for nature, one that does not objectify nature as something that is outside of humans, but rather which we are an integral part of.
We are searching the horizons for this new or old, as it may already occur in other cultures, word for this very real phenomenon. Another new unnamed phenomenon, which we've received many reports of, is the misdiagnosis of an individual's depression or mental illness, that it is derived from something that is wrong with them personally, when the depression an individual is experiencing may actually be a normal response to living in a society that is ill or broken. Said depression may actually be a healthy response of a conscious, sentient, empathetic being responding to an insane society or system. Please let us know if you find this word. We are searching high and low.
The Bureau's hotline is open 36 hours a day, 8 days a week, and 422 days a year to collaborate with you to develop new words to describe your feelings, experiences, and the world around us. Thank you.
I was going to start with a question while we have the first person getting queued up. People feel very defensive about language and the rules of language. How often do you encounter people when you bring up the idea of creating new words that it makes them like viscerally upset, like you've sort of...
Only linguists.
Only linguists.
Yeah. And I think too, my background is working on climate change for 20 years, and I've had a lot of experience with people who teach in academia and they teach environmental journalism. And I feel like people are so desperate for new words to mirror the new reality that I think people are more ecstatic. And I think also there's a desire or a need. I think we don't realize that anyone can create a word. Like when children are small and young, they start naming the world around them. And it's adults who say, oh, that's not a word. But that's insane, because what if children were allowed to name whatever they wanted and we said, oh, bravo on that word? I feel like we get more responsive, ecstatic elatement at the joy of like creating a word for something that's desperately needed than we do criticism.
And I would say, first of all, we're intentionally a faux bureaucracy. We are giving folks the agency that they always have, to shape their culture. But really, I think a lot of our focus isn't just the words themselves, but creating this space and holding a space where people can recognize that they're living and experiencing things that are phenomena that we don't have words for, and to sort of sit with that, what's often grief, not always, but is often grief. So yeah, creating that space is almost more important to us than the individual vessel of the word itself. And some linguists love us, but not.
Yeah, and to riff off of that, I think a lot of people will be at a dinner party and they don't want to say what they're thinking or feeling for fear of being like the sad person at the dinner party. Whereas when we held these salons, the first year we held them in San Francisco once a month at my house. We brought strangers together and they had no idea really what was going on because we weren't yet established. It was beautiful because people would say, I finally feel like I'm in a safe space, because they didn't know anyone in the room. They were only united if, okay, you're coming on drought. Like every topic was intense, and we have people in the room here who participated, like Mike Arcega, who created On-Way Apocalypse. the theme was extinction.
Yep.
Yeah. So the themes are pretty dark. So people come
Heard it here.
and then they create these neologisms because I feel like everyone's feeling it. And the beautiful thing is that when you look at social change, it most often occurs when people stop feeling isolated alone in their thinking and when they start feeling like I'm a part of a greater movement. And although we're just doing our own small part, it is getting people to realize every stranger in this room and I feel the same way. And there's the beauty of using humor because it's literally the best way. I don't know if you guys see now that Jon Stewart's back on the air, like he's tackling some pretty intense subjects. And that's how humans throughout history have been able to effectively talk about the most depressing, dark things. And we are clearly like humorous,
And just, and then we'll go to question really quickly, but just following up on that, I mean, it's really true that that feeling of having unease around unseasonably warm weather is something that we both felt isolated and alone in our thinking around maybe in 2010, 2011, 12, and that we originally connected on. And then we've literally gone to places all over, and it's like somebody's sharing this with us, and it's like they're telling this giant secret, and we're just like listening.
Yeah.
We've heard this before, yes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, like, until we acknowledge the collective phenomena, we carry around these anxieties individually.
Yeah.
So there's like a not so covert group therapy aspect to the artwork.
Yeah.
It's very covert.
Yeah.
Let's take a question from the audience. We have Mike. Oh.
I was wondering, have you ever thought about correcting words rather than creating new words? Words that maybe are no longer, adequate or representative of a new reality.
We actually have a term, wackaphor, that we just co-created ourselves. We didn't do it in a group, but Heidi and I collaborated on this term together, and it is to like whack old metaphors down. And so I think the original impetus of it was like, you talk about something being at glacier pace, but actually the glaciers are, let's just get rid of that. The glaciers are actually melting at an unusually fast pace. So to say glacial now can actually mean rapidly, like acceleration.
But there is also a power when people create their own word, because I feel a huge part of what I also want to do as an artist, and I think what Alicia wants to do, is we want to empower people to say, like, you're part of the revolution. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to hold a sign in the street if that's not your vibe. You can, name your feeling, because that's the beauty of language. There is no, I know in France they have like the immortals, but like for the most, and not everyone listens to them, but for the most part, there is no bureau. What we have people come up to us, and a lot of what we do is use the best behavioral science. So we use curiosity. We're sitting behind a desk. We're not coming at you. We're not talking to you. We allow curiosity to come to us. And by letting people have agency, they feel like I have control, or I am participating in a way that's relevant to me. So I think perhaps that's why we enjoy more creating something originally. And also, like with Chuko Soul, to see the transformation of people come up to the desk and they didn't know, like, what language do we pick? You're like, well, which languages do you speak? And then they'll say, well, we can't really do that. We're like, well, yes, you can, because we're in artwork. So the beauty for people to reimagine what's possible is sometimes greater. Like sometimes the words suck. People will be like, your word sucks. But since we accept an unlimited number of synonyms, we're like, okay, if you like the definition, but not the word, it's more about the process of realizing you can be a part of this. And so I think that's sometimes we're okay if it's not like perfect, but trying to start from the ground up, if that's possible. Yeah. But if you want to do that, we welcome your submissions.
And I also think that this is like a fascinating thing, because we are just focused on language broadly, but also it was sort of new for this iteration, adding this like adding the term woke and the way that it's been manipulated, or the way the term fake news has been manipulated, and how readily like our culture can just like shift from one meaning to another and how things can be really manipulated. And I think that it's going to be a wild year watching what happens with language. So yeah, correcting. I think we have to do some of that too.
Yeah, we have time for one more question, and then we're going to go into a word building session.
First of all, I wanted to ask if what you have found to be the most effective propagation of new words, spreading them amongst those owing to early adoption and returns. And then also on a somewhat related note, I was going to ask if you've experienced a particular phenomenon, and I realized there actually just needs to be a word for it. The experience of creating a new word and starting to propagate it, and then experiencing it, coming it back towards you from another point of creation at the same moment.
I think we need to bring that into the next session.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an excellent seg. Oh, but
Yeah.
the first
Well, I was going to say what's beautiful is that I think there's a book, and I can't remember the title, where people will invent things simultaneously without ever having spoken or met one another. And I think we don't always do that with the words, but like when we were in Paris for the United Nations climate change talks, we were surrounded by neologisms, and people would come from all over the world and see the word like solastalgia, which already had existed, and then personalize. We'll say like they wanted to do their own personal version of solastalgia. So there was a woman from Haiti who created Sonje Kukuman, which meant the longing for the sound of circadia and fireflies, but you no longer see them because the climate has changed. So we saw that there's a hunger for this. Everyone's feeling the same emotion. It's just that we also want to honor the beauty of the diversity of languages globally. And if we could have solastalgia and then like a million examples, I think that would do what you're saying, but also allow for people to name it exactly the way they want to, because how everyone is experiencing the climate crisis is different. Did that answer your question?
And Chris, I'll jump off of that because I actually don't think we do a good job of that. Very little of our artistic time is spent propagating these words. It would be great to have a lexicographer on the team, and, they have shown up in the New Yorker. I've had friends go to a jazz show and one of our words is the name of this song. There's actually a jazz band called the Bureau of Linguistical Reality now. I don't know. So they get around, they have movement, but I think that our passion is really about creating the space to sit with the things and creating those points of connectivity, which the words then are also points of connectivity that can go out into the world. So it's not an and or, but I would say we should do a better job at propagating them.
But and just if they have gone, like Shadow Time, someone did an independent film using that title and a whole film investigating that concept. And then also Quiaseed ended up in Canada for this people working with abuse survivors. So they make their way in the world and they serve as points of conversation, but they might not, like to your point, make it in the Oxford Dictionary. So, and I think everyone has their own definition for a metric of success. And so for me, seeing how it stimulates conversation in countries where we haven't even been around things, to me, like makes my heart sing. But some people want world domination. Some people are like easily made happy. So I think, yes, there's always room for growth. But so far it's been fun to see where it has gone.
Well, we should definitely be the change we want to see in the world. So we should all make some flashcards and study up on these words and just casually drop them into conversations as if they're definitely known words in the world.
I know you're trying to wrap it up, but one thing that we tell people, we're also both loquacious. And time is a concept. But the beautiful thing is that if you go to a party and you drop in a neologism and you say it with confidence, the majority of people will assume that they don't know what the word is. So you just say it with confidence and you put it in a word and you're like, blah, 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 you drop it and they'll be like, oh, what word is it? I don't know what that word is. Like, okay, so it's this, blah, 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 blah. And people have tried it. So there is a way that you can propagate it if you have the confidence to do that.
You guys are the fertile soil, the fertile soil that our seeds are to grow in and that will propagate them.
Yeah.
All right. Let's transition into a word-making field session.
Yeah. So we usually do this over several hours time, but we're going to try to do like an abbreviated version. And so the way that we're going to propose we do this is that we're going to ask like 3 to 5 people to share a feeling or experience for which there was a word. Then we're going to open it up to the group to figure out of all of those experiences, which ones you guys want to just play or experiment with. So it's more like a sampling of what we do. And then we'll try to create a neologism with the whole group, with the idea being that whoever suggested the feeling or experience gets to have final say if the suggested definition or words is something they feel comfortable with.
And maybe this is an opportunity, since we're at a bar, if we don't finish with the words, if there's a particular one, you could make new friends and get in a little group and create your new terms. But Chris, we had one from you, and then over here. Oh.
Thank you. This was wonderful. The feeling you have, and I think it was mentioned already, but the feeling you have of being at a party or at a dinner party or with friends and mentioning something about drought or climate change or glaciers melting and not wanting to talk about it and not wanting to be the wet blanket, but there's no word for that.
Oh, I should create a word, but
Yeah.
okay. That's one. We should have 3 options and then have the group decide which one we want to nibble on. And also we're local. So like if you're like, no, I want to create this word in my lifetime. Okay.
Yeah. Who else?
I think many people have probably experienced the sensation that your sense of your level of intelligence and knowledge is affected by whether or not you have internet connectivity, and you feel diminished when you lose it.
Nice.
So interesting. I think we can get a few here.
The feeling of having an emotional roller coaster where lots of feelings are true at the same time. So you kind of short circuit when someone asks you how you are.
Oh.
Related to the feeling of the discomfort of a beautiful sunny winter day, perhaps the opposite, the social pressure to feel gratitude on a rainy day.
I think you can combine over here too.
Yeah. Oh, should we do one more?
One more.
Okay.
The resignation of climate change. I keep encountering people who are just resigned that climate change is happening. Mm-hmm. But they like say it. They use those 3 words. I wish there was like a shorter word for that.
So is it, just for clarification, I don't know if you can hear, but he said the resignation that climate change is happening. Are you upset that people have just given up? Okay, he's nodding his head yes, emphatically.
Okay, so we have resignation on climate change.
For the sake of time, would you guys mind if we just kind of ask people to raise their hands as we then summarize each topic? So like, and don't worry, this is like, we're all brainstorming. There's the desire to work on the word in the back about resignation for climate change. Like how many people want to explore that word? And then
the rain. Oh.
Okay, rain so far is the highest desire.
The resignation.
And then where was there's other, who else suggested a term?
Roller coaster.
Oh, an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Oh, it's between rain and emotional roller coaster. Who wants to decide the tie besides us? Rain?
Rain.
Okay, so one woman is deciding the tie. Sorry.
You can be the change.
Yeah. So, and again, we're like ongoing in San Francisco. So this is not a fait accompli for all the beautiful offerings that other people made. So the way we're going to do it is like, for the rain, do you want this to be a verb or a noun? So it's just, so for people who couldn't hear, it's a verb and it's a feeling. And is the social pressure, you're upset it's coming from the outside because you're actually totally fine in the inside with it all? Is it like a conflict of the outside feeling and an inside feeling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there kind of like a glum kind of feeling in the word, like that heaviness that we had this morning?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some like, oh, I really should feel good.
Do you guys want to contribute to the definition, or do you want to contribute to the emotion? Oh, you're already creating a word.
Yeah. We've always got one.
Okay, fine. So this process is nonlinear. So we have, what's your name? Lightning is, so at the end you get the final say, but he just contributed a potential neologism.
Would you like?
You can write.
Can you spell?
So pluvate. So PLUVIFAKE.
Watch out for the.
So you're pretending you like Ray.
Wow. Did you? He had his hand up. Did you want to contribute?
Can you guys see this? Okay. What does it feel like, you guys, when you have that, when you're like, it's raining. It's bitter.
Okay.
That's stronger than what I was expecting.
Okay, so adjectives. And so what we can also do is we can create a definition, and then there can be an unlimited number of synonyms. So
Is there any kind of like eye rolliness about the judgment, or like, is that a sort of another layer of this? Distraining? Oh my gosh.
just can you? So this should be so it's technically distraining. Oh, it could also be distraining. Acoustically, it sounds like it drains you.
It
Okay.
makes me think of like, when you're talking to somebody and they're draining your energy. It makes me think of that. Like, they're like, I know that we need the rain.
Also, just this could be really interesting because when you look at it,
That person, by the way.
when you look at this, it's kind of beautiful because the rain is coming down, but because the rain's coming down, you feel emotionally drained. Right? No? Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot your name. Who suggested this feeling? Lark?
Lark.
So Lark, how do you, just because this is just an example, like truncated how we do things, how, of all the words that have been suggested for you, which ones do you vibe on the most? Like, which ones are hitting the nail for you the most? All right.
I mean, this would look fake. I think there's something particularly Californian about this, so can we add some more syllables? Like this.
Sarah both.
Talipluvaphake?
Oh. How do I spell that? How do I spell that?
CALIPLUV. IFAKE.
IFKAE. Sorry that was so short, but thank you for being so open to doing a word brainstorming session with what we had. And you can come up and you can decide which one you want out of all of these. And then we'll just create the synonyms. And then what we'll seek to do is work with you independently to flesh out the definition. And then we'll seek to include all the synonyms.
And all of you, it'll be like the Google Doc from hell.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Your linguistical reality.
Oh.
Please give one more round of applause for the Bureau.
Thank you.